The gunshot echoed through the dusty streets of Silver Creek, Colorado, sending a flock of startled crows into the azure sky of 1879. Katherine Blackett flinched, pressing her slender frame against the weathered wooden wall of Dunham's general store, her heart racing as she glanced down at the torn hem of her pale blue dress now stained with dirt. The three men who had followed her from the saloon were closing in, their intentions as clear as the midday sun that beat down on the small frontier town. "Come on now, pretty lady," the tallest of the three slurred, the stench of whiskey preceding him as he staggered forward. "Just want to have us a little conversation." Katherine's fingers trembled as she reached for the small derringer hidden in the pocket of her dress, a gift from her late father, who'd always warned her about the dangers a young woman might face in the West. But before she could grasp it, the sound of steady footsteps approaching from the side alley caught everyone's attention. "I believe the lady isn't interested in your conversation," came a deep, steady voice. Through the gap between her pursuers, Katherine saw him tall and imposing against the harsh sunlight, his revolver already drawn. Dust swirled around his boots as he stepped forward with a confidence that spoke of a man who knew how to handle himself in dangerous situations. "This ain't your business, stranger," spat the man closest to Katherine, his hand hovering near his holster. The newcomer's eyes never wavered, his revolver aimed with practiced precision. "I'm making it my business." The standoff lasted only seconds. Katherine held her breath, watching as the three men exchanged glances, weighing their chances against the steady hand and unwavering gaze of the cowboy who'd come to her aid. "Ain't worth dying over," muttered the tallest one, backing away with his hands slightly raised. "Come on, boys." Katherine exhaled slowly as her harassers retreated down the alley, casting venomous glares over their shoulders. Only when they disappeared around the corner did the cowboy lower his weapon, sliding it smoothly back into his holster before turning his attention to her. "Are you hurt, madam?" he asked, his voice gentler now, concern evident in his deep blue eyes. "No," Katherine replied, smoothing down her dress with trembling hands. "Just shaken, thank you, Mr. Archer, Adam Archer," he said, removing his hat to reveal sun-streaked brown hair. "And you are?" "Katherine Blackett," she responded, finally looking directly at her rescuer. He wasn't what she'd expected, younger than his confident demeanor suggested, perhaps 28 or 30, with a face that spoke of both hardship and kindness. "I'm afraid I've only been in Silver Creek for 3 days, and I'm still learning which establishments to avoid." Adam's expression softened as he replaced his hat. "Silver Creek has its rough edges like any frontier town. What brings you here, Miss Blackett, if you don't mind my asking?" Katherine hesitated, unsure how much to reveal to this stranger, yet something about his steady gaze invited trust. "I inherited my uncle's dressmaking shop after he passed last month. I came from Boston to either run it or sell it." Adam nodded, his eyes taking in the quality of her dress, clearly Eastern in style and make. "That would be Elias Blackett's place on Main Street. I remember him. Good man." "You knew my uncle?" Katherine asked, her interest piqued. "Everyone knew everyone in Silver Creek, until the silver strike last year brought all manner of folk to town," Adam explained. "May I escort you somewhere safe, Miss Blackett? Those men might think twice about returning, but it's better not to take chances." Katherine straightened her shoulders, regaining her composure. "That's very kind, Mr. Archer. I should return to my shop. I've errands to complete before nightfall." As they walked together down the dusty Main Street, Katherine studied her rescuer from the corner of her eye. His clothes were worn but clean, his manner that of a gentleman despite the weathered look of a man who lived by his wits and skill in harsh country. "Are you a lawman, Mr. Archer?" she asked as they navigated around a wagon loaded with supplies. Adam shook his head. "No, madam. I ranch about 15 miles outside of town, just came in for supplies." He gestured to the leather saddlebags slung over his shoulder. "Been trying to make a go of it since the war ended." "The war?" Katherine inquired, though she immediately regretted the personal question. Adam's expression remained neutral. "Served with the Union. Came west afterward, like many others. Started with nothing but found this country has a way of giving a man a second chance if he's willing to work for it." They reached the modest storefront with Blackett's fine tailoring painted in elegant script across the window. Katherine paused at the door, turning to face her rescuer. "Thank you again, Mr. Archer. I'm in your debt." Adam touched the brim of his hat. "No debt necessary, Miss Blackett. Though perhaps I could call on you properly sometime. When you're settled." Katherine felt a warmth rise to her cheeks, surprising herself with her reaction to this man she'd just met. "I would like that, Mr. Archer. Tomorrow evening, perhaps. I could show you which parts of town are safer for a lady." Katherine nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. Tomorrow evening would be fine. As Adam Archer walked away, Katherine entered her uncle's shop, now hers, with a fluttering heart that had nothing to do with her earlier fright. The frontier, it seemed, held more possibilities than she had anticipated when she'd reluctantly boarded the train in Boston. The following day passed in a whirlwind of activity as Katherine continued sorting through her uncle's affairs, organizing the shop, and meeting the various townspeople who came by to offer condolences and satisfy their curiosity about the Eastern niece who had inherited Elias Blackett's business. By late afternoon, Katherine found herself nervously checking her appearance in the small mirror behind the counter. She had changed into one of her better dresses, a deep burgundy with modest lace trim that complemented her chestnut hair, which she'd arranged in a simple but elegant style. It had been years since she'd felt such anticipation about spending time with a gentleman. The bell above the shop door jingled promptly at 6 o'clock. Adam Archer stood in the doorway, hat in hand, looking transformed from the dusty cowboy of yesterday. He'd clearly made an effort. His dark blue shirt was pressed, his face freshly shaven, and his usually unruly hair tamed. "Good evening, Miss Blackett," he said, his confident demeanor slightly betrayed by the way he shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "Mr. Archer," Katherine greeted him with a smile. "You're punctual. My mother would accept nothing less," he replied with a small grin that softened his weathered features. "She may be back in Illinois, but I still hear her voice in my head about matters of courtesy." Katherine gathered her shawl and reticule. "A good woman, your mother. The best," Adam agreed, offering his arm as they stepped outside. "I thought we might start with dinner at Mrs. Hollister's boarding house. She serves the finest meal in Silver Creek, though that may not be saying much compared to Boston fare." As they walked down the boardwalk, Katherine was acutely aware of the curious glances from townsfolk. A newcomer like herself being escorted by a man like Adam was bound to start tongues wagging. "People are staring," she murmured, feeling self-conscious. Adam chuckled softly. "Small towns run on gossip, Miss Blackett. By tomorrow, half the town will have us engaged and the other half will claim I'm secretly an outlaw kidnapping you for ransom." His humor eased her tension and Katherine found herself laughing. "Which version would you prefer?" "Well, I'm no outlaw," he replied with a twinkle in his eye, "but I wouldn't mind the first rumor eventually." Katherine felt her cheeks warm at his forward comment, but there was something refreshingly honest about Adam Archer that she found appealing after years of navigating Boston's polite society with its hidden agendas and veiled meanings. Mrs. Hollister's boarding house proved to be a pleasant surprise. The robust widow served a hearty beef stew with fresh baked bread that rivaled any Katherine had tasted back east. Over dinner, she learned more about Adam's life, how he'd purchased a struggling cattle ranch after saving for years, working as a trail hand and occasionally as a deputy when towns needed extra guns during particularly rowdy times. "It's not much," Adam admitted as he described his modest ranch. 200 acres, a small herd of cattle, and a cabin I built myself, but it's mine, free and clear." "That's more than many can claim," Katherine said genuinely. "There's pride in building something from nothing." As they continued their conversation, Katherine found herself opening up about her own life, her schoolteacher parents, who had died within a year of each other, when she was 19, leaving her to make her own way as a seamstress in Boston. She spoke of the shock of learning about her uncle's bequest, a relative she'd never met, but who had apparently kept track of her through correspondence with her parents. "I wasn't sure what to do when the lawyer's letter arrived," she confessed. I had a comfortable life in Boston, but something about this opportunity felt like a chance to start fresh. Adam nodded in understanding. The West has a way of calling to those looking for a new beginning. After dinner, Adam showed Katherine around the safer parts of Silver Creek, pointing out buildings of interest and introducing her to townspeople they encountered. By the time they reached her shop again, nearly 3 hours had passed in what felt like minutes. At her door, Adam hesitated. "I hope you enjoyed the evening, Miss Blackett." "I did very much," Katherine replied honestly, "and please call me Katherine." A slow smile spread across Adam's face. "Katherine, then, and I'm Adam." "Adam," she echoed, testing the name on her lips and finding she liked the sound of it. "I'll be in town again on Saturday," he said. "Perhaps we could continue our tour then." Katherine nodded, surprised by how much she was looking forward to seeing him again. "I would like that." As she watched him walk away down the darkening street, Katherine felt a sense of possibility she hadn't experienced in years. Silver Creek might prove to be more than just a temporary stop in her life. The next few weeks established a pattern. Adam would come to town every few days, and they would spend time together, sometimes dining at Mrs. Hollister's. Other times simply walking and talking as Katherine became more familiar with her new home. She learned about ranching life, about the challenges Adam faced with drought and cattle thieves. In turn, she shared stories of Boston, of theater performances and literary societies that seemed a world away from the rugged simplicity of the Colorado frontier. Katherine found herself increasingly busy with the dress shop as well. Word had spread that the new proprietress had brought Eastern fashion sensibilities to Silver Creek, and the wives of miners and merchants alike began commissioning work. Katherine discovered that she enjoyed the challenge of adapting Boston styles to the more practical needs of frontier women. One afternoon in late September, nearly a month after their first meeting, Adam arrived at the shop unexpectedly, his expression tense. "Adam." "I wasn't expecting you until Saturday," Katherine said, setting aside the bodice pattern she'd been cutting. "I know, and I apologize for the interruption," he said, his usual calm demeanor replaced with clear concern. "Katherine, those men who harassed you that first day, they're back in town and they're asking about you. The tallest one, Silas Morin, has been bragging at the saloon about settling a score." Katherine felt a chill despite the warm afternoon. "What should I do?" Adam's jaw tightened. "I'd like to take you to my ranch until they move on. Sheriff Davis is usually too drunk to handle troublemakers properly." "Leave town," Katherine hesitated. "I have orders to fill responsibilities." "Just for a few days," Adam assured her. "Mrs. Hollister has agreed to watch the shop and explain your absence to customers." The seriousness in his eyes convinced her. "Very well. How soon should we leave?" "Now would be best. My wagon's out front." Within the hour, Katherine had packed a small valise with essentials and left detailed instructions with Mrs. Hollister. The older woman had given her a knowing look that made Katherine blush, but she had no time to explain that this was a matter of safety, not impropriety. The journey to Adam's ranch took nearly 3 hours, the wagon bouncing along rough trails that gradually climbed into the foothills. Katherine watched the landscape change from the relatively flat surroundings of Silver Creek to rolling hills dotted with pine and aspen, the latter beginning to turn golden with the approach of autumn. When they finally crested a ridge, Adam slowed the horses. "There it is," he said with undisguised pride, gesturing toward the valley below. Katherine followed his gaze and caught her breath. A small cabin nestled against a backdrop of pines with corrals and outbuildings nearby. A creek glittered in the late afternoon sun, winding through meadows where cattle grazed peacefully. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks already dusted with early snow. "It's beautiful," she whispered, genuinely moved by the tranquil scene. Adam's expression softened. "Not what you're used to, I imagine." "No," Katherine agreed, "but sometimes what we're used to isn't what we need." The cabin proved to be larger than it appeared from a distance, a main room with a stone fireplace, a small kitchen area, and 2 bedrooms separated by a curtain rather than a wall. Adam insisted Katherine take his room while he would sleep in the spare room he usually used for storage. I'll prepare some supper, he said after showing her where to refresh herself. Nothing fancy, I'm afraid. I can help, Katherine offered. I may be a city girl, but I do know my way around a kitchen. Together, they prepared a simple but satisfying meal of beans, bacon, and cornbread. Katherine found herself enjoying the domestic task, working alongside Adam in comfortable silence punctuated by occasional conversation. As they ate, sitting at the rough-hewn table Adam had crafted himself, Katherine felt a contentment that surprised her. "Tell me about your dreams for this place," she said, genuinely interested. Adam's eyes lit up as he described his plans expanding the herd, adding to the cabin, perhaps building a proper barn to replace the lean-to shelter he currently used. With luck and hard work, in a few years this could be one of the more prosperous ranches in the county. "You'll need a bigger table," Katherine observed with a smile, "for when you have a family." A shadow seemed to cross Adam's face. "That's a dream I don't often let myself consider. Ranching is a hard life for a woman. Most ladies I've known prefer town life to the isolation out here." Katherine looked around the cabin, seeing not its limitations but its possibilities. "I think the right woman wouldn't mind the isolation if she had the right companion." Their eyes met across the table, and something unspoken passed between them. Adam cleared his throat, breaking the moment. "It's getting late. You must be tired from the journey." That night, lying in Adam's bed surrounded by the subtle scent of him on the linens, Katherine found herself contemplating a future she hadn't considered before coming west. Boston seemed increasingly distant, not just in miles but in her heart. The next morning, Katherine woke to the sound of Adam moving about the cabin, trying to be quiet but betrayed by the occasional creak of the floorboards. She dressed quickly in the most practical of the garments she'd packed, and emerged to find him preparing breakfast. "Good morning," he greeted her, looking momentarily startled by her appearance, her hair simply braided rather than elaborately styled, her dress plainer than those she typically wore in town. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I expected," Katherine admitted. "There's something soothing about the quiet here." After breakfast, Adam invited her to see more of the ranch. "I need to check on a few things, if you'd care to join me." The day passed pleasantly as Adam showed Katherine around his domain. She met his small band of cowboys, 3 weather-beaten men who tipped their hats respectfully, and tried not to stare too openly at the city woman in their midst. Adam demonstrated how to mend fences, check on pregnant cows, and gauge the water level in the creek that was the lifeblood of his operation. Katherine found herself fascinated by this life so different from her own. When Adam handed her the reins of a gentle mare for a ride around the property, she surprised him with her competence. "My father believed every proper lady should know how to ride," she explained, smoothly mounting the horse, "though I haven't had much opportunity in recent years." By late afternoon, they had returned to the cabin, and Katherine insisted on preparing dinner. "You've been working all day," she said firmly. "Rest a while." Adam watched with evident admiration as she moved confidently around his kitchen, improvising with the limited ingredients available. The simple stew she prepared tasted better than anything he'd managed on his own, a fact he readily acknowledged. "If this dressmaking business doesn't work out, you could open a restaurant in Silver Creek," he teased. Katherine laughed. "I think I'll stick to sewing, but I'm glad you approve of my cooking." They spent the evening by the fire, Adam reading aloud from one of the few books he owned, a collection of Shakespeare's sonnets that had been his mother's. Katherine worked on some mending she'd brought along, listening to his deep voice give life to the beautiful words. When it was time to retire, Adam hesitated by the curtains separating their rooms. "Katherine," he said softly, "I want you to know that bringing you here, it wasn't just about protecting you from those men." She looked up, her needle paused mid-stitch. "Oh, I've been looking for a reason to show you this place, to show you my life," he admitted. "I know it's presumptuous." "We've known each other such a short time." Katherine set her sewing aside and stood, moving toward him. "Sometimes it doesn't take long to know your own mind, Adam." He reached for her hand, his touch gentle despite his calloused fingers. "And what does your mind tell you, Katherine Blackett?" "That Boston seems very far away," she whispered, "and that I'm not as eager to return as I thought I would be." Adam's free hand moved to cup her cheek, his eyes searching hers for permission before he leaned down to brush his lips against hers, a tentative kiss that deepened when Katherine responded, her hands moving to his shoulders. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Adam rested his forehead against hers. "I should let you rest," he said reluctantly. Katherine nodded, though it took all her will to step away from him. "Good night, Adam. Good night, Katherine." The next morning brought a change in the weather, dark clouds gathering over the mountains as they ate breakfast. "Storm's coming," Adam observed, frowning at the sky visible through the small window. "Might be best to wait it out before heading back to town." Katherine found she didn't mind the delay. The idea of returning to Silver Creek, to the shop and her solitary routine there, held less appeal than it once had. By midday, rain lashed at the cabin, the wind howling around the eaves. Adam kept the fire burning steadily, the interior cozy despite the tempest outside. They passed the hours talking, sharing stories and dreams, the enforced closeness accelerating the growing intimacy between them. "I never expected this," Katherine admitted as they sat side by side on the rough sofa Adam had built. "Coming west was supposed to be temporary, settle my uncle's affairs, perhaps sell the shop, then return to what I knew." Adam's arm around her shoulders tightened slightly. "And now?" "Now I'm not sure I want to leave," she said honestly. "There's something about this place, about this life, that feels right in a way Boston never did, despite its comforts and culture." A particularly strong gust of wind rattled the shutters, making Katherine start. Adam pulled her closer. "You're safe here," he murmured against her hair. "I know," she replied, and realized she meant it completely. With this man in this place, she felt a security that went beyond mere physical safety. The storm raged through the night and into the next day. By the second evening of their confinement, the atmosphere in the cabin had changed, charged with unspoken feelings and growing desire. They moved around each other carefully, aware of every accidental touch, every shared glance. After dinner, as they again sat by the fire, Adam turned to face Katherine directly. "I need to say something, and I hope you won't think me too forward." Katherine's heart quickened. "You can speak freely with me, Adam." He took her hands in his expression serious. "I know we've known each other only a short while, but I've never felt this way about anyone before. The thought of you returning to town, perhaps eventually to Boston, is more than I can bear." Katherine squeezed his hands encouragingly. "Go on." "I'm asking no, hoping that you might consider staying, not just in Silver Creek, but here with me." Adam's voice grew husky with emotion. "I'm asking if you might consider becoming my wife, Katherine." Though she had sensed the conversation's direction, the actual proposal still took her breath away. "Adam, are you certain? This is all happening so quickly." "Some things don't need time," he said simply. "Sometimes you just know." Katherine searched his face, seeing nothing but sincerity and hope there. She thought of her life in Boston, comfortable but lonely, predictable but unfulfilling. Then she thought of the past month, of the joy she'd found in Adam's company, of the peace she felt in this wild, beautiful country. "Yes," she whispered, then more firmly. "Yes, I'll marry you, Adam." The joy that transformed his face was worth any uncertainty she might have felt. He pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that left no doubt about his feelings. When they separated, both breathing heavily, Adam pressed his forehead to hers. "I promise to make you happy, Katherine, to build a good life for us here. We'll build it together," she corrected gently. "Your dreams are becoming mine now." The storm finally broke the following morning, leaving behind a washed, clean world sparkling in the autumn sunshine. They rode back to Silver Creek together, Adam insisting on escorting Katherine safely to town, despite the work waiting for him at the ranch. As they approached the outskirts of Silver Creek, Katherine noticed Adam's posture stiffen, his hand moving instinctively toward his holster. "What is it?" she asked, following his gaze. 3 riders were approaching from the direction of town, the same 3 men who had harassed Katherine behind the general store. At their head was Silas Morin, his face twisted in a malicious grin when he spotted them. "Well now," Morin called out as the distance closed between them. "If it ain't the pretty Boston lady and her cowboy protector." Adam halted their wagon, positioning himself slightly in front of Katherine. "Morin," he acknowledged coldly. "I heard you were asking about Miss Blackett." "Just wanted to finish our conversation," Morin drawled, his hand resting conspicuously on his gun. "Seems you interrupted us last time. The lady isn't interested in anything you have to say," Adam replied, his voice steady despite the obvious tension. Katherine placed her hand on Adam's arm, drawing strength from his presence but determined to stand her own ground. "Mr. Morin, I suggest you and your friends move on. There's nothing for you here." Morin's eyes narrowed. Mighty high and mighty for a woman alone in these parts. "She's not alone," Adam stated firmly, "and she never will be again. Miss Blackett has agreed to become my wife." The declaration seemed to take Morin by surprise. He glanced between them, clearly reassessing the situation. Whatever grievance or desire had brought him back to harass Katherine, he was now facing not just a temporary obstacle in Adam but a permanent complication. "That true, miss?" he asked skeptically. Katherine lifted her chin. "It is, Mr. Archer and I will be married as soon as arrangements can be made." Something in her calm certainty seemed to deflate Morin's belligerence. After a tense moment, he shrugged, affecting indifference. "Well, congratulations then," he said sarcastically. "Come on, boys. Ain't nothing worth our time here." As the three riders moved past them toward the open country, Adam remained vigilant until they were well beyond any threat. Only then did he turn to Katherine, concern etched on his features. "Are you all right?" Katherine nodded, her heart still racing but her resolve unshaken. "Yes, and I meant what I said. I want to marry you as soon as possible." The news of their engagement spread through Silver Creek with the speed only possible in a small frontier town. Katherine found herself the center of attention at the dress shop, with female customers offering congratulations and advice in equal measure. Mrs. Hollister proved to be their greatest ally, helping Katherine arrange for a simple ceremony to be held in 2 weeks' time. The older woman also became Katherine's confidante, offering practical guidance about married life on a ranch that her own mother might have provided had she been alive. "It won't be easy," Mrs. Hollister warned as she helped Katherine alter a cream-colored silk dress for the wedding. "Ranching is hard work and winters can be isolating, but that Adam Archer is a good man, the kind who will stand by you through whatever comes." "I know," Katherine replied, certain of her decision despite its swiftness. "I've never felt so sure of anything." The wedding day dawned clear and crisp in early October, the aspen trees around Silver Creek a blaze of gold against the evergreen backdrop. The small church was filled with townspeople who had come to witness the union of the Eastern dressmaker and the respected rancher. Adam waited at the altar, more nervous than he'd ever been facing down armed men, but when Katherine appeared at the church door, radiant in her cream silk with autumn flowers in her hair, his anxiety melted into joy. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt, their voices steady as they exchanged vows. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Adam kissed his bride with a restrained passion that nevertheless brought knowing smiles to the older women in attendance. The celebration afterward at Mrs. Hollister's boarding house was lively, with music, dancing, and more food than Katherine had seen since leaving Boston. As evening approached, she found herself increasingly eager to depart for their new life together. Adam seemed to sense her thoughts, appearing at her side as she chatted with well-wishers. "Ready to go home?" he asked quietly, his eyes reflecting the same anticipation she felt. "Yes," Katherine replied simply, slipping her hand into his. They said their goodbyes amid good-natured teasing and departed in Adam's wagon, now loaded with wedding gifts and Katherine's belongings from her room above the shop. The arrangement for the dress shop had been settled. Katherine would maintain ownership, but had hired Mrs. Hollister's daughter, Sarah, to manage day-to-day operations, with Katherine coming to town once a week to handle special orders and oversee the business. As they traveled the now familiar road to the ranch, Katherine leaned against her husband's shoulder, content despite the uncertainty of the future ahead. When the cabin came into view, golden in the setting sun, Adam stopped the wagon on the ridge. "Welcome home, Mrs. "Archer," he said softly, helping her down from the seat. Katherine gazed at the valley below at their valley and felt a surge of emotion. "It's perfect," she whispered. Adam's arms encircled her from behind, his chin resting atop her head. "Not yet, but it will be. We'll build something special here together." Katherine turned in his embrace to face him, reaching up to trace the line of his jaw. "We already have," she said before rising on tiptoe to kiss him, sealing their promise to each other as the sun sank behind the mountains of their Colorado home. Epilogue: 1 year later, the autumn sun cast long shadows across the expanded porch of the Archer Ranch house as Katherine rocked gently, her sewing basket beside her and a half-finished baby gown in her lap. The cabin had grown over the past year, a proper bedroom added, the main room enlarged, and this porch where she now sat enjoying the late afternoon warmth. The sound of hoofbeats drew her attention, and she smiled as Adam appeared over the ridge, returning from checking the northern pasture. He saw her waiting and urged his horse to a trot, his face breaking into the smile that still made her heart race after a year of marriage. "How are my two favorite people?" he called as he dismounted, tying his horse to the hitching post before bounding up the porch steps. "We're well," Katherine replied, one hand resting on her swollen belly where their child grew, "though your son has been particularly active today." Adam knelt beside her chair, placing his hand over hers. "Daughter," he corrected with a grin. "She's going to be as beautiful and stubborn as her mother." "We'll know soon enough," Katherine laughed, feeling the baby kick as if in response to its father's voice. Adam leaned up to kiss her softly. "I rode by the new schoolhouse site in town. They're making good progress. Should be finished before spring." Katherine nodded, pleased. The school had been her idea, a place where the children of ranchers and townspeople alike could receive a proper education. She had organized the fundraising, drawing on skills honed in Boston charitable societies, and had even committed to teaching part-time once the baby was old enough. "Mrs. Hollister says the dress shop continues to prosper," she told him. "Orders are coming in from as far as Denver now." "You've transformed this community," Adam said proudly. "Just as you transformed my life." Katherine set aside her sewing to cup his face in her hands. "We transformed each other's lives, Adam. I never imagined I could be this happy." He helped her up from the rocking chair, and together they stood at the porch railing, watching the sunset paint the valley in hues of gold and crimson. Adam's arm circled her waist, his hand protectively covering the place where their child grew. A year ago, Katherine had been cornered behind a general store, frightened and alone in a strange town. Now she stood on the porch of a home filled with love, beside a man who had appeared that day with his revolver drawn but had ended up capturing her heart instead. No regrets. Adam asked softly, a question he still posed occasionally, as if he couldn't quite believe his good fortune. Katherine turned in his embrace, rising on tiptoe to press her lips to his. "Not a single one," she whispered against his mouth. "This is exactly where I'm meant to be." As darkness fell across the Colorado foothills, the lights of the Archer Ranch glowed warmly, a beacon of the love and life they had built together in this wild, beautiful land they now both called home.